Hey, crew. It's Pitt, and I'm back with a little more discernment. Today, we are diving back into the book of Jasher. We will be reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points that are brought to light by the text. It's not the format for everyone, but people do find value in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue our exploration. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the box down below so that you can get a better understanding of who I am and why I say the things that I do. A particular note is going to be the Unconventional Bible Study, which is 161 videos of me going through a Bible study and seeing what it says, and The House Built Upon Shifting Sands, which is the synthesis of that study. Um, if you find value in what we're doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow, throw me a comment. Whether you agree or disagree with anything that I say, put it in the box down below. And if it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If you truly find value, I ask that you hit the super chat or super thanks. Consider joining for a membership or picking up a copy of any of my books. The first one, A Series of Unconventional Beliefs, is my explanation of the procedure by which I learned how to use the Holy Spirit to heal myself through the will of God. The second one, The Greenstone, is my work on alchemy. I consider it to be the completion of the Mysterium Conjunctionis and Carl Jung's work on the archetypes. That's spiritual alchemy, not physical. And the third one is The House Built Upon Shifting Sands. It is a biblical deconstruction of the Bible, using primarily the Bible as the source to deconstruct the Bible. With all of that being said, the links are provided down below. You can buy any of these books, or you can watch me read them for free in the links that are provided for the playlist. The playlist with the appropriate title will get you where you want to go. And so now we are going to dive in and we are going to continue our exploration of the book of Jasher with chapter 7, and we'll see where we wind up. And these are the names of the sons of Noah: Japheth, Ham, and Shem. And children were born to them after the flood, for they had taken wives before the flood. Well, their dad picked them out some wives, said, you, and you get on the boat. Right? That's what we got in the other story. 2. These are the sons of Japheth: Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. 7 sons. And the sons of Gomer were Ashkenaz, Rephath, and Togarmah. 4. And the sons of Magog were Elishaneph and Lubal. And the children of Madai were Achan, Zelo, Chazani, and Lot. The sons of Javan were Elisha, Tarshish, Chittim, and Duanim. And the sons of Tubal were Araphi, Kathed, and Tari. And the sons of Meshech were Dedan, Zaran, and Zabashni. And the sons of Tyrus were Benib, Gera, Luprion, and Gilak. And these were the sons of Japheth, according to their families, and their number in those days were about 460 men. And these were the sons of Ham: Cush, Mitzrayim, Phut, and Canaan. 4 sons. And the sons of Cush were Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Rama, and Satecha. And the sons of Rama were Sheba and Dedan. And the sons of Mitzrayim were Lud, Anam, Pathros, Kasloth, and Kaphtor. And the sons of Phut were Gebol, Hadan, Beneh, and Hadan. And the sons of Canaan were Zidon, Heth, Amori, Gagashi, Hivi, Arki, Senah. Why is that over there? Arodi, Zemodi, and Kamoti. These are the sons of Ham, according to their families, and their number in those days were about 730 men. And these are the sons of Shem: Elam, Ashur, Arpachshad, Lud, and Aram. 5 sons. And the sons of Elam were Shushan, Makul, and Harmon. And the sons of Ashar were Miras and Mokil. And the sons of Arpachshad were Shelach, Anar, Ashkol. And the sons of Lud were Pethor and Bizayon. And the sons of Aram were Uz, Kul, Gater, and Mash. These are the sons of Shem according to their families, and their numbers in those days were about 300 men. I'm not going to take up any argument with the generations whatsoever, right? I think that They are an amalgamation of creation stories and that these names came from somewhere. I don't know that they are historically accurate in all of their iterations, and it is not vitally important to me that they be. So these are the generations of Shem. Shem begat Arpachshad, and Arpachshad begat Shelag. And Shelag begat Eber, and Eber were born two children. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days the sons of men were divided, and in the latter days the earth was divided. And the name of the second was Yoktan, meaning that in his day the lives of the son of men were diminished and lessened. These are the sons of Yoktan: Almodad, Shalaf, Karzamarov, Movith, Yarak, Hadurum, Ozel, Dikla, Obal, Abimel, Sheba, Ophir, Havila, and Jobab. All these are the sons of Yoktan. And Peleg, his brother, begat Yen, and Yen begat Sarug, and Sarug begat Nahor, and Nahor begat Terah, and Terah was 38 years old, and he begat Haran and Nahor. And Cush, the son of Ham, the son of Noah, took a wife in those days in his old age, and she bare a son, and they called his name Nimrod, saying, at that time the sons of men again began to rebel and transgress against God. And the child grew up, and his father loved him exceedingly, for he was the son of his old age. It keeps jumping back and forth for some reason. I'm just going to tighten it up. Hopefully, I can still read it fairly well. And the garments of skin which God made for Adam and his wife when they went out from the garden were given to Cush. For after the death of Adam and his wife, the garments were given to Enoch, the son of Jared. And when Enoch was taken up to God, he gave them to Methuselah, his son. At the death of Methuselah, Noah took them and brought them to the ark, and they were with him until he went out of the ark. As far as I'm aware, this is the only account that gives any special significance to the clothing of Adam and Eve. But that is new, right? We've seen it here already in this study, but like I don't know that that's anywhere else. I mean, maybe they're trying to tie into Jason and the Golden Fleece and those type of things, but it really doesn't fit. Sorry. And in their going out, Ham stole those garments from Noah his father, and he took them and hid them from his brothers. And when Ham begat his firstborn Cush, he gave him the garments in secret. And they were with Cush many days. And Cush also concealed them from his sons and brothers. And when Cush had begotten Nimrod, he gave him those garments through his love for him. And Nimrod grew up. And when he was 20 years old, he put on those garments. And Nimrod became strong when he put on the garments, and God gave him might and strength, and he was a mighty hunter in the earth. Yea, he was a mighty hunter in the field, and he hunted the animals, and he built altars, and he offered upon them the animals before the Lord. And Nimrod strengthened himself, and he rose up from amongst his brethren, and he fought the battles of his brethren against all their enemies round about. And the Lord delivered all the enemies of his brethren in his hands, and God prospered him from time to time in his battles, and he reigned upon the earth. Therefore, it became current in those days when a man ushered forth those that he had trained up for battle, he would say to them, like God did to Nimrod, who was a mighty hunter in the earth, and who succeeded in the battles that prevailed against his brethren, that he delivered them from the hands of their enemies. So may God strengthen us and deliver us this day. Now, I've already made the arguments before about these sacred objects, right? This clothing that allows them to conquer all of the people except the one person that happens to conquer you, right? It gives you all of this strength, even though that is not the story of Adam, right? Adam was not this great warrior and hunter upon the earth. That was not the story of Adam. They weren't given permission to eat meat until after the flood, so Adam definitely wasn't a hunter, right? There's that whole problem with this first sacrifice, and we've dealt with that already. And so this is just a continuation, right? This is an extrapolation upon the story in Genesis, trying to deliver some extra information. The problem is that the information is God knows source, right? But on top of that, it is stretching incredulity, right? It is a little bit hard to believe this, right? First off, it was animal skins. Well, leather can last a very long time. That is true, but if it is in use, It is going to wear out, right? If you are wearing leather clothing, it will wear out. I don't care who made it. Unless God specifically said these clothes are to last forever, they're going to wear out. And so you have these leather clothes that are imbuing these powers, and that's probably a derivative from somebody else's story along the way. I don't know, maybe what's his name? Gilgamesh. But didn't Gilgamesh have some? Maybe he didn't have clothes. Somebody did. I know that there's a mantle for Marduk, right? There's these clothing that is associated with other legends, even if I don't know the specifics. And so that is the entire possibility that that is where it is derived from. Um, I don't want to just keep hammering that particular nail though, and this is just apologetics, right? This whole book is created story, at least in the 16th century, but probably predating that. The scrolls disappeared, so we don't have a way to authenticate any of this in any other story whatsoever. This is the sole survivor of this particular narrative. And even though it gives extensive detail into the patriarchs, it wasn't picked up and assimilated into Genesis. It was allowed to just vanish into history. And when Nimrod was 40 years old, at that time there was a war between his brethren and the children of Japheth, so that they were in the power of their enemies. And Nimrod went forth at that time, and he assembled all the sons of Cush and their families, about 460 men. And he hired also from some of his friends and acquaintances about 80 men. And he gave them their hire, and he went with them to battle. And when he was on the road, Nimrod strengthened the hearts of the people that went with him. And he said to them, "Do not fear, neither be alarmed, for all our enemies will be delivered into our hands, and you may do with them as you please." And all the men that went were about 500, and they fought against their enemies, and they destroyed them and subdued them. And Nimrod placed standing officers over them in their respective places. Is this the one where it was like 5 million people that they were going up against with 5,000? Right? It was impossible numbers. I don't remember the exact numbers because it wasn't really real or relevant. So, and he took some of their children as security, and they were all servants to Nimrod and to his brethren. And Nimrod and all the people that were with him turned homeward. And when Nimrod had joyfully returned from battle, after having conquered his enemies, all his brethren, together with those who knew him before, assembled to make him king over them. And they placed the regal crown upon his head. And he set over his subjects and peoples, princes, judges, and rulers, as is the custom amongst kings. And he placed Terah, the son of Nahor, the prince of his host, and he dignified him and elevated him above all his princes. And whilst he was reigning according to his heart's desire, after having conquered all his enemies around, he advised with his counselors to build a city for his palace, and they did so. And they found a large valley opposite to the east, would that be in the west? And they built him a large and extensive city. And Nimrod called the name of the city that he built Shinar, for the Lord had vehemently shaken his enemies and destroyed them. And Nimrod dwelt in Shinar, and he reigned securely, and he fought with his enemies, and he subdued them, and he prospered in all his battles, and his kingdom became very great. And all nations and tongues heard of his fame, and they gathered themselves to him, and they bowed down to the earth, and they brought him offerings, and he became their lord and king. And they all dwelt with him in the city at Shinar, and Nimrod reigned in the earth over all the sons of Noah, and they were all under his power and counsel. And all the earth was of one tongue and of words of union, but Nimrod did not go in the ways of the Lord, and he was more wicked than all the men that were before him, from the days of the flood until those days. And he made gods of wood and stone, and he bowed down to them, and he rebelled against the Lord. And he taught all his subjects and the people of the earth his wicked ways. And Merodon, his son, was more wicked than his father. But see, that's a problem though, because what we have here is that he is obviously blessed, right? He is obviously blessed if he is allowed to reign over all of the earth. But then he falls off, right? He is blessed because he is keeping these statutes, and then he just falls off. Well, why would he do that? right? He was doing perfectly fine for a long period of time, operating under the statutes, right? And we don't know what those statutes were. They were definitely not what Moses came up with in the Midian desert. And so, what's the, it doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't. That he would be placed into a position because of the way that he was taught and the way that he acted, and then he would just fall off from those ways, and the ones behind him would fall off from those ways, right? It is obviously just a retroactive apology for the actions. How could he have been blessed in the point where he was building this city and be wicked enough that all of the earth had to die, right? And that is contradictory. That is true. That is not even one of the points that I addressed in my book, but that is a very good contradictory point, right? How was he allowed to do this and be so wicked? Again, that is taking away the agency of God to make discernment happen. But God gives us free will to make the wrong choices. So he's not going to punish you for making the wrong choices. He's not going to be happy, but whatever. It's an experience. And so it doesn't make any sense that he would fall off. It really doesn't. It doesn't make any sense that the people leaving in the Exodus after being led by a pillar of fire and ash through the Red Sea, watching their enemies be crushed. At one point, the fire goes over the top of them and stops Pharaoh, right? They see these miracles and then immediately rebel against God. That does not make any sense. It's just completely contradictory to human nature. Humans are not less suspicious in the antiquity, right? They are more suspicious. And so they are more likely to cling to these signs and wonders that they have, even on this level. And it is possible to be tempted while in power to fall, but it seems to be a we need this to happen. It's a Mary Sue, right? It needs to be perfect, so it is. Back to the text. And everyone that heard of the acts of Merodon, the son of Nimrod, would say concerning him, from the wicked goeth forth wickedness. Therefore became a proverb in the whole earth, saying, from the wicked goeth forth wickedness. And it was current in the words of men from that time to this. And Terah, the son of Nahor, prince of Nimrod's host, was in those days very great in the sight of his king and his subjects, and the king and princes loved him, and they elevated him very high. And Terah took a wife, and her name was Amthelo, the daughter of Cornebo. And the wife of Terah conceived and bare him a son in those days. Terah was 70 years old when she begat him, and Terah called the name of his son that was born to him Abram, because the king had raised him in those days and dignified him above all his princes that were with him. All right, next chapter. Jasher, chapter 8. And it was in the night that Abram was born that all the servants of Terah and all the wise men of Nimrod and his conjurers came and ate and drank in the house of Terah, and they rejoiced with him on that night. That's not unlikely at all, right? All the servants of the house of Terah, okay, fine, the night that the man was born, okay. But all the wise men of Nimrod showed up, okay, and his conjurers. There's a lot of people, and they drank in the house of Terah. Like, that's a lot of people, bro. And when all the wise men and conjurers went out from the house of Terah, they lifted up their eyes towards heaven that night to look at the stars, and they saw, and behold, one very large star come from the east and ran in the heavens, and he swallowed up the four stars of the four sides of the heaven. Really? So, what is this literally saying? Right? They walk out of the house after the birth of Abram. Okay, this is a unique narrative. This is something we don't see anywhere else, right? So we can't pull any contradicting evidence from somewhere else. We have to assume, but they walk out and they look up and they see this star, right? And they saw behold one very large star coming from the east and ran in the heavens. And he swallowed up the four stars from the four sides of the heavens. Is this a literal thing? Did this happen literally? Do you think that there came from the east a star and it crossed the heavens? I mean, that part we can talk about, right? Comets, asteroids, meteors, those things all do exist. They are real. Even rogue planets are not outside the realm of possibility. I am not limiting those things out necessarily. We do need evidence, and Jasher's not going to be it. But this thing swallowed up the entirety of the sky, right? It blocked out all these stars. That is what this is saying. Because if it blocked up the east and the west and the north and the south, which would be the four corners of the heavens, the four stars from the four sides of the heavens, then it has to block out the entirety of the sky. Well, anything that is going to be able to do that is automatic cataclysm right here, right now. It is done. Anything that gets that close, it is a wrap, Cap. You can take it to the bank, Jake. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Anything that is going to pass close enough to block out the moon, right? We have our eclipses, but when we see the eclipse on the moon, it is our Earth in the blocking the view of the sun to the moon, right? It's not anything else coming in between us and the moon, because if anything of sufficient size to block out the entirety of the heavens, even in one particular location, passes by, it is automatic destruction. That is done. There is nothing that is going to be able to pass within that unit, right? That's not an astronomical unit. That's like much less than, right? That is between the distance between us and the moon is, man, in order to do this, it has to be in that location, right? In order to block out all four corners, it has to be massive. It has to be close enough to block them out. Well, that's causing some consistency issues with reality. But I mean, if you're living in the 1600s, this is not outside of your reality. This is your everyday conception of life. This is what you think is real, right? It just can randomly happen that all of the stars would black out. Well, that doesn't happen in reality. There has to be a cause, and there are many causes that we could discuss it in doing it, right? But what is being described here is a specific thing. This is a star that crosses the sky and blocks out all of the stars, right? One very large star came from the east and ran in the heavens and swallowed up the four stars from the four sides of the heaven. That's a big statement. And all the wise men of the king and his conjurers were astonished at the sight, and the sages understood this matter, and they knew its import. And they said to each other, "This only betokens the child that has been born to Terah this night, who will grow up and be fruitful and multiply and possess all the earth, he and his children forever, and he and his seed will slay great kings and inherit their lands." Well, that's not apologetics at all. That's not written after the fact. Like, this is the only instance of this particular prophecy that, as far as I am aware, there is no prophecy that Abram would be, right? There is contention that there was prophecy of a virgin birth, but there is no reason to believe that if you go back to the actual words and the actual prophecy, besides the fact that it was fulfilled in real time in the life of the prophet, besides all of that, right? As far as I am aware, and correct me if I am wrong, there is no other reference to a prophecy that Abram would be born. And he will slay great, and he and his seed will slay great kings. Well, he didn't slay any kings, right? Right? No, he tried to kill his kid, but not any kings. And the wise men and conjurers went home at night that night, and in the morning all these wise men and conjurers rose up early and assembled in an appointed house. And they spoke and said to each other, "Behold, the sight we saw last night is hidden from the king. It has not been made known to him." Bullshit. Bullshit. I'm waving a flag right now. That is a bullshit remark. There is a absolute 0% chance that there was not a night watchman or something along those lines who would report to somebody that would report to the king that the entirety of the sky was blacked out by a star. There is a 0% chance that that was a thing that could happen. And that is of such significance that it would be known instantaneously, right? People would wake people up to talk about that. There is no way possible that somebody did not witness that. And by morning, it'd be across the entirety of the city. That is a 0% chance. Sorry. And the wise men and conjurers went home and assembled in the appointed house. All right. And should this thing get known to the king in the latter days, he will say to us, why have you concealed this matter from me? And then we shall all suffer death. Therefore, now let us go and tell the king the sight which we saw and the interpretation thereof, and we shall then remain clear. And they did so, and they all went to the king and bowed down to him to the ground. And they said, may the king live, may the king live. We heard that a son was born to Terah, the son of Nahor, the prince of thy host, and we, yesternight, came to his house, and we ate and drank and rejoiced with him that night. And when thy servants went out from the house of Terah, sorry, to go to our respective homes, to abide there for the night, we lifted up our eyes to heaven, and we saw a great star coming from the east. And the same star ran with great speed and swallowed up 4 great stars from the 4 sides of heaven. And thy servants were astonished at the sight which we saw, and were greatly terrified. And we made our judgment upon the sight, and knew by our wisdom the proper interpretation thereof, that this thing applies to the child that is born to Terah, who will grow up and multiply greatly, and become powerful, and kill all the kings of the earth, and inherit all their lands, he and his seed forever. And now, our Lord and King, behold, we have truly acquainted thee with what we have seen concerning this child. If it seemeth good to the king to give his father value for this child, we will slay him before he shall grow up and increase in the land, and his evil increase against us, that we and our children perish through this evil. And the king heard their words, and they seemed good in his sight, and he sent and called for Terah, and Terah came before the king. And the king said to Terah, I have been told that a son was yesternight born to thee, and after this manner was observed in the heavens at his birth. And now therefore give me the child, that we may slay him before his evil springs up against us, and I will give thee for his value thy house full of silver and gold. It's interesting that they're referring to Abram as evil, considering all of the actions of Abram that he takes. But I mean, like, this is again, obviously, tying this into the story of Moses, right? And then again into the story of Jesus, because that's a thing that happened. I mean, there was zero record of the order to kill all of the children of the age of Jesus. There is no record of that anywhere, except in the Bible. I mean, I will grant you that, but outside of the biblical context, there is no reference to that having happened. And the Romans recorded everything, all of the good stuff, all of the bad stuff. They may have put a spin on it, but they recorded it. And if they had actually commanded all of these children to die, there'd be a record of it. There would be an outside source and an inside source. It would be corroborated by many different sources, because killing children is a bad thing. In mass, a bad thing. And even if you think that this person has the authority to tell you to kill your children, you're going to write shit down about that. But this is a tie into that narrative, right? Obviously, there has to be the authority that wants to kill this child, and that is why we have this outflow. And Terah answered the king and said to him, my lord and king, I have heard thy words, and thy servant shall do as all that his king desireth. But my lord and king, I will tell thee what happened to me yesternight, that I may see what advice the king will give his servant, and then I will answer the king upon what he has just spoken. And the king said, speak. And Terah said to the king, Ayan, son of Mored, came to me yesternight, saying, Give unto me the great and beautiful horse that the king gave thee, and I will give thee silver and gold, and straw and provender for its value. And I said to him, Wait till I see the king concerning thy words, and behold, whatever the king saith, that will I do. And now, my lord and king, behold, I have made this thing known to thee, and advice which my king will give unto his servant, that will I follow. And the king heard the words of Terah, and his anger was kindled, and he considered him in the light of a fool. And the king answered Terah and said to him, Art thou so silly, ignorant, or deficient in understanding to do this thing, to give thy beautiful horse for silver and gold, or even for straw and provender? Art thou so short of silver and gold that thou shouldst do this thing, because thou canst not obtain straw and provender to feed thy horse? And what is silver and gold to thee, or straw and provender, that thou shouldst give away that fine horse which I gave thee, like which there is none to be had on the whole earth? And the king left off speaking, and Terah answered the king, saying, Like unto this has the king spoken to his servant. I beseech thee, my lord and king, what is this which thou didst say unto me, saying, Give thy son that we may slay him, and I will give thee silver and gold for his value? What shall I do with silver and gold after the death of my son? Who shall inherit me? Surely then in my death the silver and gold will return to my king who gave it. And when the king heard the words of Terah and the parable which he had brought concerning the king, it grieved him greatly, and he was vexed at this thing, and his anger burned within him. And Terah saw that the anger of the king was kindled against him, and he answered the king, saying, All that I have is in the king's power. Whatever the king desireth to do to his servant, let him do. Yea, even my son, he is in the king's power, without value in exchange, he and his two brothers that are older than he. And the king said to Terah, No, but I will purchase thy younger son for a price. And Terah answered the king, saying, I beseech thee, my lord and king, to let thy servant speak a word before thee, and let the king hear the word of his servant. And Terah said, Let my king give me 3 days' time till I consider this matter within myself, and consult with my family concerning the words of my king. And he pressed the king greatly to agree to this. And the king hearkened to Terah, and he did so, and he gave him 3 days' time. And Terah went out from the king's presence, and he came home to his family and spoke to them all the words of the king. And the people were greatly afraid. And it was in the 3rd day that the king sent to Terah, saying, Send me thy son for a price as I spoke to thee. And shouldst thou not do this, I will send and slay all thou hast in thy house, so that thou shalt not even have a dog remaining. And Terah hastened, as the thing was urgent from the king, and he took a child from one of his servants, which his handmaid had borne to him that day. And Terah brought the child to the king, and received value for him. So, did the handmaid have Terah's child? Because he took a child from one of his servants, which his handmaid, which is a servant, had born to him that day. Sounds like he took his own kid and gave it to the king, but it was a different kid because, that matters. Really? And the Lord was with Terah in this matter, and Nimrod might not cause Abram's death. And the king took the child from Terah, and with all his might dashed his head to the ground, for he thought that it had been Abram, and that makes it better. It's better to kill this kid instead of that one. You're absolutely right. God was not able to intervene and stop that from happening. He wasn't able to take this man who was raising this child up and smite him dead. That's not possible. That's outside of the realm of possibility. Instead, we have a deception that must take place so that this child can be murdered. And this was concealed from him from that day, and it was forgotten by the king, as it was the will of providence not to suffer Abraham's death. And so he just forgot that he dashed this child's brains on the floor. And Terah took Abram, his son, secretly, together with his mother and nurse, and he concealed them in a cave, and he brought them their provisions monthly. And the Lord was with Abram in the cave, and he grew up, and Abram was in the cave 10 years. And the king and his princes, soothsayers and sages, thought that the king had killed Abram. Yeah, that's not a repeat of the Moses narrative at all. Oh, wait, it predates Moses. Jasher, chapter 9. And Haran, the son of Terah, Abram's oldest brother, took a wife in those days. Haran was 39 years old when he took her, and the wife of Haran conceived and bare a son, and he called his name Lot. And she conceived again and bare a daughter, and she called her name Milcah. And she again conceived and bare a daughter, and she called her name Sarai. Haran was 42 years old when he begat Sarai, which was the 10th year of the life of Abram. And in those days, Abram and his mother and nurse went out from the cave as the king and his subjects had forgotten the affair of Abram. And when Abram went out from the cave, he went to Noah and his son Shem, and he remained with him to learn the instruction of the Lord and his ways. And no man knew where Abram was. And Abram served Noah and Shem his son for a long time. And Abram was in Noah's house 39 years. And Abram knew the Lord from 3 years old, and he went in the ways of the Lord until the day of his death. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. As Noah and his son Shem had taught him. And all the sons of the earth in those days greatly transgressed against the Lord, and they rebelled against him, and they served other gods. And they forgot the Lord who had created them in the earth. And the inhabitants of the earth made unto themselves at that time every man his god, gods of wood and stone, which could neither speak, hear, nor deliver. And the sons of men served them, and they became their gods. So there is a problem, right? If you are unaware, I have several contentions. I have listed my contentions in print form. The links are available and the playlist is available. And one of the problems that I have is described right here, right? And so, um, Abram was not a good man. Abram was not a good man in the slightest way. He married his sister and had to flee from the home of his father. Now, this is the Genesis narrative, not the Jasher narrative. Right? He had to flee from the lands of his father. He left, right? And he wasn't allowed to come back. And we discover later in the story that it's because he had his wife. I mean, his wife was his sister. Now, he tried to pass her off as his sister, right? And that didn't work out because they found out that it was actually his wife. But in that same story, at that same point in time, he says that it really is his sister. And so we find out that he was incestuous. Well, at the time of Abram, according to the current understanding of chronology anyway, it was absolutely illegal to have sexual relations with incestuous intent. That was including aunts and uncles, much less your sister. And the penalty for that was death. It would absolutely make sense that if you were so enamored with your sister that you were going to do all of those things that you absolutely should not be doing, you would have to run away if you wanted to live, and you would go somewhere where people would know you, and it would even make sense that, you could pass her off, right? On top of all of that, though, Abram was not a good dude, right? He sold his wife as his sister twice for profit. He was a pimp. He pimped his wife for money twice, at least. He was covetous the entire time that he was walking through the lands that was occupied by other people. It was constantly, well, this land's going to be yours, and this land's going to be yours, and that land's going to be yours. He was constantly covetous of everybody's stuff. The listening to the angel to go and murder his child, that's not schizophrenic at all. That's not at all detrimental to humanity as a whole. To actually go to sacrifice your child, that's not even getting into the argument of this entity tells him to do it and this entity tells him to stop. And these entities are at collision with each other. There's two different angels. There's a lot of problems with Abraham's story. But the one thing you cannot say for him was that he kept the ways of the Lord. And the king and all his servants and Terah with all his household were then the first of those that served God of wood and stone. And Terah had 12 gods of large size, made of wood and stone, after the 12 months of the year, and he served each one monthly. And every month Terah would bring his meat offering and drink offering to his gods. Thus did Terah all the days. This is not an absolute wrong, right? There are multiple gods to peoples. They were given meat and drink offerings. Sometimes they were arranged in a circle, and sometimes they did indeed number 12. Whether that was true throughout the entirety of the understanding is not known. This I cannot bring direct objection to because this is a practice that did happen in antiquity. Uh, where exactly Terah was existing, it says east of Eden or east of Eden, which doesn't quite fit with the biblical narrative, but close enough. Uh, then so I can't bring any direct contradiction to this at all. And all that generation were wicked in the sight of the Lord, and they thus made every man his God, but they forsook the Lord who had created them. Now, if you are giving a name or a face to God, you are probably forsaking the God that created you. And all that generation were wicked in the way. And there was not a man found in those days in the whole earth who knew the Lord, for they served each man his own God, except Noah and his household, and all those who were under his counsel knew the Lord in those days. And Abram, the son of Terah, was waxing great in those days, in the house of Noah, and no man knew it, and the Lord was with him. And the Lord gave Abram an understanding heart, and he knew all the works of the generation were vain, and that all their gods were vain and were of no avail. I'm not in disagreement with that, but this is after the flood, right? We're already repopulating after the flood, and now everything is going bad. Right? Yeah, okay. I'm just making sure I got my chronology right. And Abram saw the sun shining upon the earth, and Abram said unto himself, Surely now this sun that shines upon the earth is God, and him I will serve. And Abram served the sun in that day, and he prayed to him. And when evening came, the sun set as usual. And Abram said within himself, Surely this cannot be God. And Abram still continued to speak within himself, Who is he who made the heavens and earth? Who created upon earth? Where is he? And night darkened over him, and he lifted up his eyes to the west, north, south, and east. And he saw that the sun had vanished from the earth, and the day become dark. And Abram saw the stars and moon before him, and he said, Surely this is the God who created the whole earth as well as man.
I'm so sorry.
There's somebody on the roof? Yes,
Yeah.
I know. You were asleep. I couldn't tell you.
What?
They're doing an appraisal. It's fine.
Oh my God. And Mama didn't know?
No, he called me right before I started recording saying he was coming. I'm live. So
I'm so sorry. I thought Ryan was on the fucking roof.
no, it's not him.
And Mama didn't know, so I'm freaking the fuck out.
No, Mama didn't know. He called me like right before I started recording. I had like 5 minutes. So if we go with her.
Oh my God. Mama.
And he saw that the sun had vanished from the earth. Sorry, like I had an inspector come and my daughter was asleep. She worked late last night. It's a whole misunderstanding. Things happen. And Abram saw the stars and moon before him, and he said, Surely this is the God who created the whole earth as well as man. And behold, these his servants are gods around him. And Abram served the moon and prayed to it all night. And in the morning, when it was light, I'm sorry, it's so funny because my neighbor is a whole problem, and my daughter thought he was the one on the roof. That's so funny to me. And in the morning, when it was light, and the sun shone upon the earth as usual, Abram saw all the things that the Lord God had made upon the earth. And Abram said unto himself, Surely these are not the gods that made the earth and all mankind, but these are the servants of God. And Abram remained in the house of Noah, and there knew the Lord and his ways. And he served the Lord all the days of his life, and all that generation forgot the Lord, and served other gods of wood and stone, and rebelled all their days. And King Nimrod reigned securely, and all the earth was under his control. And all the earth was of one tongue and words of union. And all the princes of Nimrod and his great men took counsel together, Phut, Mitzrayim, Cush, and Canaan with their families. And they said to each other, Come, let us build ourselves a city, and in it a strong tower, and its top reaching heaven. And we will make ourselves famed, so that we may reign upon the whole world, in order that the evil of our enemies may cease from us, that we may reign mightily over them, and that we may not become scattered over the earth on account of their wars. And they all went before the king, and they told the king these words. And the king agreed with them in this affair, and he did so. And all the families assembled, consisting of about 600,000 men, and they went to seek an extensive piece of ground to build the city and the tower. And they sought in the whole earth, and they found none like one valley at the east of the land of Shinar, about 2 days' walk. And they journeyed there and dwelt there. And they began to make bricks and burned fires to build the city and the tower that they had imagined to complete. And the building of the tower was unto them a transgression and a sin. And they began to build it. And whilst they were building against the Lord God of heaven, they imagined in their hearts to war against him and to ascend to heaven. Do you know that? Is that a factual statement that you can make? Maybe you know what was in their hearts. Okay. And all these people and all their families divided themselves in three parts. The first said, We will ascend to heaven and fight against him. The second said, We will ascend to heaven and place our own gods there and serve them. And the third part said, We will ascend to heaven and smite him with bows and spears. And God knew all their works and all their evil thoughts. And he saw the city and the tower which they were building. And when they were building, they built themselves a great city and a very high and strong tower. And on account of its height, the mortar and bricks did not reach the builders in their ascent to it, until those who went up had completed a full year. And after that, they reached to the builders and gave them the mortar and bricks, and thus it was done daily. The mortar and bricks did not reach their builders in their ascent to it, until those who went up and completed a full year. What is this even saying? And when they were building, they had built themselves a great city and a very high and strong tower. And on account of its height, the mortar and bricks did not reach the builders in their ascent to it, until those who went up had completed a full year. So, what this is stating is that it took a year to walk up the tower with the mortar and bricks. Right? On account of its height, the mortar and bricks did not reach the builders in their ascent to it until those who went up had completed a full year. And after that, they reached to the builders and gave them the mortar and bricks. Thus was it done daily. And once again, I am just simply going to have to call bullshit. Right? Like, again, 0% probability because, first off, if you were to build a skyscraper to the mesosphere, that is like 2 miles, 2 miles tops. And like it's 4 miles to outer space, right? If you believe in outer space, I do. And so you can walk 4 miles in an hour, right? On flat ground. Now, if you're moving up and you're moving with bricks and mortar, and you have to walk in a spiral, so go ahead and add 2/3 to that. So let's go ahead and say instead of 4 miles, you're walking 12 miles and you're under load, right? You're walking up a ramp around the tower under load, maximum 4 miles. That's not 360 days. That's not 365 and a quarter days. That is a day, two tops, maybe a day up and a day down. Like you can do that. I get it. It's not even inconceivable. That's not even as hard to conceive as building the pyramids. But that it took a whole year for those who went up, completed a full year, and after that, they reached to the builders. Well, first off, you're bringing all this bricks and mortar up If you're going that high, there's going to be some problems with the mortar getting set. That's going to be a problem. Trust me, I do know what I'm talking about. But on top of that, you got to sustain the effort, right? You're talking about how many people walking up at a time? How many days consecutively? Are they walking every day? There is another course of people bringing another course of stones. Well, that's a lot of food and water. Now, you know how hard it is? Like you're transporting the bricks, and that's difficult. You're transporting the mortar, and that's more difficult because it is still wet in waterways. And so you're not only bringing bricks and mortar, but you're bringing food and water for an entire year's journey. Really? Yeah, there goes that incredulity meter once again off the charts. There's no way. Like, even if you were to say that these things were true, like, there's no way that they could keep that supplied. It's just simply not a possibility. Besides the fact that there's not enough atmosphere for it to reach high enough to require a year. You can walk across the entirety of the United States in a couple of months. And behold, these ascended and others descended the whole day. And if a brick should fall from their hands and get broken, they would all weep over it. And if a man fell and died, none of them would look at him. Okay. And the Lord knew their thoughts, and it came to pass when they were building, they cast the arrows towards the heavens, and all the arrows fell upon them, filled with blood. And then they saw them, they said to each other, surely we have slain all those that are in heaven, because that's going to be possible. And for this was from the Lord, in order to cause them to err, and in order to destroy them from the face of the ground. And they built the tower and the city, and they did this thing daily until many days and years were elapsed. Many years. And God said to the 70 angels who stood foremost before him, to those who were near him, saying, come, let us descend and confuse their tongues, that one man shall not understand the language of his neighbor. And they did so unto them. And from that day following, they forgot each man his neighbor's tongue, and they could not understand to speak in one tongue. And when the builder took from the hands of his neighbor lime or stone, which he did not order, the builder would cast it away and throw it upon his neighbor that he would die. Really? So they were getting specific lime for their stones, right? I ordered this stone. Okay, fine. Maybe it is cut at the bottom of this tower. How are you communicating that? Are you waiting a year for the message to go down and the message to come back up that you can cut the stone in this specific dimensions? Is that the logistics that we're talking about? That's a little ridiculous. But you can't build this course or you can't build the next course until this course is done. So you're waiting on that one stone. And if it's the wrong one, yeah, you okay, you'll get mad. But the lime, right? You didn't order the lime, right? Well, that's the lime is part of mortar, right? There's a whole process that goes into making cement. Cement and concrete are not the same things. And lime is an intrinsic part of both of them. It is a quickening agent for cementation processes. It helps to provide the structure. It is the calcium carbonate for the thing. It makes the rock become a rock. And so you're going to have it, but you don't need a specific blend for a specific rock, right? If you're building a course, then the entire course is going to have consistent mortar. A lot of problems. A lot of problems. And they did so many days, and they killed many of them in this manner. And the Lord smote the three divisions that were there, and he punished them according to their works and designs. Those who said, we will ascend to heaven and serve our gods, became like apes and elephants. And those who said, we will smite the heavens with arrows, the Lord killed them. One man through the hand of his neighbor, and the third division of those who said, we will ascend to heaven and fight against him, the Lord scattered throughout the earth. Oh, wow. Well, that just convenience, man. That just makes sure everything fits just perfectly where it needs to, just right, let me tell you. And those who were left among them, when they knew and understood the evil which was coming upon them, they forsook the building, and they also became scattered upon the face of the whole earth. And they ceased building the city and the tower. Therefore, he called that place Babel. For there the Lord confounded the language of the whole earth. Behold, it was at the east of the land of Shinar. As to the tower which the sons of men built, the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up 1/3 part thereof. And a fire also descended from heaven and burned another third, and the other third is left to this day. And it is of that part which was aloft, and its circumference is 3 days' walk. And many of the sons of men died in that tower, a people without number. Well, there would be a number, and if it was God telling us, he would tell us what it is because he has no problem giving us those absolutely correct denominations in any other instance. But that is where we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. We will be picking up in chapter 10. I didn't stop and argue as much this time, right? We've already established that this is not a firm historical record. We can already establish that this is apologetics, and that is what we just read, right? What that was, hey, I need this narrative to fit. Here is how we make it fit. Where did elephants come from? Here we go. Where did monkeys come from? I got you, fam. I mean, for real, that's what this is. It is a retrospective insertion because it is not recorded anywhere else. If it was, even in part, right? The parts that are in here are not the parts that are in Genesis. The parts that are in Genesis are not the parts that are in here. And so it is obviously a collaboration. Now, we can argue about time periods, whether or not the scrolls were actually real or not. Who knows? We don't. Probably this was created in the 1600s as an apology for the things that are wrong with the Bible, and there are several of those. Hopefully, I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a somewhat difficult series of topics. I understand that I hold some unconventional beliefs, and I do have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those. It is not intentional, and it is not something that I apologize for. Some of this stuff is just simply ridiculous, right? There is a 0% chance that this Tower of Babel required somebody to walk uphill for a year to reach the top, besides the logistics being impossible. You know how much water you're talking about to move water uphill? Anyway, there's a lot of problems with this. And if God was in discordance with this, how did he get that far along? Right? How did that become so far? He wasn't able to confound their tongue when they began this project, right? He had to wait until it was way up here and they were throwing each other off because somebody brought you mortar that you didn't order. Well, obviously, you're like, right? You don't even have to talk. What me? Like that's common to humanity. We are able to communicate through symbols and grunts. Like, uh, like they have meaning. We can figure it out. We can discern it. This is obviously an amalgamation of stories about people speculating about the beginning, and fine. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow, throw me a comment. Whether you agree or disagree with anything that I say, put it in the box, and if it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If you really like it, hit me with the super thanks. Consider joining for a membership, picking up a copy of any of my books, or reaching out through the links provided down below. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt's Take. Peace.